it's essential for us to recognize that the person you're talking to, or you're devising, or you're planning programs, or you're sending your students out to work in the field. It is important for you to educate them of what could be the underlying factors, which many of us overlook. Maybe because lack of awareness, maybe it's too complex, maybe we're just not aware. Anyway, so the factors of family honor is important. Societal norms are important. If you like I said before, these are super important factors that play into how it impacts women. So when you're looking at an immigrant woman, she's just not a woman, but she's also an immigrant, and there's an intersectional approach here. So it's an immigrant, she's an immigrant, she's a woman. So as a woman, we know what happens. I mean, all of us are educated in this. The stressors, the demands, the expectations, the barriers that we face because of our gender. And then you're also a person of color. Perhaps if you're coming from specific areas of the world, you're a person of color. So that is a triple whammy, isn't it? You are immigrant, you are based on you. So as an immigrant, you are anyway, you would be discriminated, perhaps as because of your gender. Perhaps you could be discriminated there. And then you're a person of color as well. Wow. So triple whammy. And I want you to recognize how this impacts mental health. It impacts our mental health, definitely. Physiological, definitely, and there are studies to prove that. Now we are talking a lot about mental health nowadays, which is very essential. But one thing, when you're working with ethnocultural communities, and this might not be generic, could be for specific populations, communities. And it's essential for us to recognize that when you're working with specific communities, if you're talking about mental health, that's a big taboo. I mean, it's a taboo in our part of the world, in North America anyways. However, if you're coming from, you add on to add on to it being an immigrant, add on to it coming from a different part of the world, add on to it your gender. It's a big taboo. I have been told numerous occasions, would I seek counseling? No. Would I? And I'll tell you why. Because the concept of counseling is not prevalent everywhere around the world. We need to recognize what's happening in different parts of the world when we are working here, because our communities have changed. It's no longer a white community. We have so much of diversity in here, and to give due respect to the experiences of what. Well, somebody has to pay the bill, so she decides to go into survival jobs. So those that don't pay you well, but can pay your bill. So she decided to go there, and this is what she would have. Her routine was this: getting up in morning, leaving at 4, doing her work, paying bills, coming back home, and then do the housework, the chores. Very essential for us to recognize that is what gender also brings into play. The lack of resources. Perhaps back in her country of origin, she might have resources to hire help to do her whole housework, but here, as an immigrant, there are no that perhaps that luxury might not be there. So then she would have to do that, sleeping for a few hours and then going back, while supporting her spouse look for a job in his field. Would have been easier for her if her spouse was working as well? Absolutely. However, then we have the male perspective that comes into play as well, which is important when you look into immigrant families. I'm sorry, I'm not able to see any comments if there are any, but I'm just going to go to the next slide because it's already 9:50. So I keep harping about an inclusive approach. Now, why do we need to include? Like I've mentioned this before as well. Complex realities are difficult. We need to recognize and accept this. There are certain complex realities that ethnocultural communities experience that are difficult for a person who perhaps not belong to that community might have difficulty comprehending. we need to recognize that it's important for research, it is important for program planning, so it's important across all layers. It is also important for students who are going out and working, for frontline workers who are working, that there are certain things that are difficult to comprehend. Simple as that. um, it is essential why to have this intersectional approach. Well, we aren't we? Canada, look at Canada. We have been growing exponentially. Diversity, with diverse people from diverse backgrounds are coming here. So it's important for knowing what are the needs of this growing community, and so we need to have an intersectional approach, not a ethnocentric, but it is important to have that. And perhaps you might disagree with me, which is absolutely okay. Would love to hear your feedback on it. It is also important to understand what immigrants experience. Um, when they're coming here in a country which is new cultural understandings, which are relatively new cultural understandings. It's not been a long time that Canada has opened their borders, and so the programs are in the developing phase now. We are now recognizing, hey, intersectional approach, inclusive approach, what does that mean? It's power sharing, what does that mean? Those are difficult terms, and it is happening definitely, but it is a lot of work needs to be done.